بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه ثم أما بعد. We're still at the second station, or the second degree of muraqabah, and the first degree is to consistently walk to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with complete focus in the midst of feelings of diverting glorification, carrying or encouraging nearness, and reviving joy. And the second was basically about the clearing your heart from all forms of objection, so that you're not in opposition to Allah. And we said that this happens by clearing your heart from any shubha that interferes with certainty in His khabar, in His statements, and any shahwa or desire that interferes with complete submission to His amr or command, and from any love that competes with His love in your heart. And then he says here, وَنَقْدُرُ عُنَةَ التَّعَرُّض, and disrupting the imprudence of forming barriers, or disrupting the imprudence of interferences. What is the imprudence of interferences? Interferences here, and this may require a little bit of concentration. Interference is when you trip over yourself. Interference is when you become watchful of your watchfulness, not His watchfulness. So interference is when your watchfulness, you become a captive of the station of watchfulness. So you're watching your watchfulness. And once you watch your own action, you're not watching Him. The idea here is to have no barriers whatsoever. And that is extremely important in every station and in every action that you do. You make sure that you have no barrier. Because the barriers, if you're in a car, and the windshield of the car goes opaque all of a sudden, what happens? You get in an accident. If you're in a car and the windshield of the car is opaque, you can't reach your destination. Sometimes your vehicle become an obstacle. Your vehicle become an interference, an obstacle. So once you start to watch your watchfulness, and basically to attribute that watchfulness to yourself, and not to watch His watchfulness of you, and not to recognize, His favor in guiding you to be watchful, but rather to attribute it to yourself, that is like this station has become an interference now. You have become watchful of your watchfulness, watchful of your actions, which will still obstruct you from beholding your objective. Okay? No. Let's take a more tangible example. Like you do the night prayers for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and once you start to watch your night prayers and to watch the effort that you put into the night prayers, and to watch the difficulty of making wudu with, then that will be an obstacle. That will be a barrier between watching the favor of Allah on you. Because you're here watching your action, not His action. And what you need to do is basically to disavow your actions. To not disavow your actions per se, but rather to not attribute anything to you and to your ability, to your piety, and so on and so forth. So there is no interference, so that you don't trip over yourself. You don't trip over your own actions once you become cognizant and aware of your actions. Because your awareness should be of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His actions, His bounties and His favors on you. All of your awarenesses should be consumed in that. Once you become aware of your own actions, that takes away from your awareness of His favors. The third degree of watchfulness here is being observant of the eternity, which is the ancient eternity, pre-eternity, eternity in before all things, and then there is eternity after all things. Huwa al-awwal, he is the first, means he is the pre-eternal, and he is the last, means post-eternal. Being observant of the eternity by noting the antecedents of Allah, thus realizing the true essence of Tawheed, and observing the marks of the past eternity on the future eternity, and observing sincerity by riddance from the trap of muraqabah. So, being observant of the eternity, how do you make use of this for your iman? Basically, being observant of the ancient eternity of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You sit with yourself and say to yourself, you sit with yourself and say to yourself, like 100 years ago, was anyone of us here? No. 200 years ago, was any of the living human beings on earth here? No. 1 million years ago, was any creature on earth here? No. Billions of years passed. Was there anything but Allah? Many billions of years. We don't know when the Arsh and Qalam were created. You just keep on going back and going back and going back to the point where there was only Allah. And that's the point where you stop. And then you behold that point. You behold that point. So that the creation vanishes in your perception, not in existence. Because there are two different types of fana. There is fana, which is vanishment. Vanishment, nothingness. The vanishment of the creation, there are two different types. There is the vanishment in existence, which is it's an innovation, it's an ugly innovation, because then it means that there is no creation and creator, and the only thing that exists is the creator. And if the only thing that exists is the creator, this is something here, because you could pinch it and you could see it, and then you reach the point of the blasphemy of Al-Hallaj when he said that there is nothing inside this jubba or cloak but Allah. And he pointed to his own cloak, because that is basically saying that nothing truly exists but Allah, so there is nothing inside this cloak but Allah. And that is a form of disbelief. Because all of the Quran is about the creation and the creator, and the difference between the creation and the creator, and how we are his servants, and so on and so forth. So people who want to take it who want to sound abstract or philosophical, then they deny the obvious. They deny the obvious, and they fall in the worst forms of irony, contradiction, and disbelief. But there is vanishment in perception, which is the vanishment that Ahl Sunnah have, and they don't condemn this. Vanishment in perception is when the creation would not be a barrier between you and the Creator anymore, because they vanished in your perception, not in their existence. You do recognize that they exist. This exists here, and I'm sitting here, and Brother Atif is sitting right across from here, and I see him. But once I start to observe him, and once I start to think of whether he will like my next comment or not, then he became a barrier. So he is like an interference, and he should have not been. I'm sitting across from him. Once he thinks the same way, I became a barrier. He's not seeing through me. He should see through me. Because we're just about tools. Allah said, وَجَعَلْنَا بَعْضَكُمْ فِتْنَةً لِبَعْضٍ أَتَصْبِرُونَ. We have made each one and every one of you trials for one another. Will you be patient? وَكَانَ رَبُّكَ بَصِيرًا. Your Lord is all-seeing. So, if you can't see through, then you become a barrier and interference. The creation becomes a barrier and interference between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You can't behold Allah, and you can't focus on your objective because your vision is obstructed by the creation. So basically the nice example, and certainly there is always, when you move from abstract to tangible, there will be always things missing or that will drop in the way. But the nice example is the glass board. The glass board. The glass board exists, and you do recognize that it exists, but it does not obstruct your vision. So if you treat the creation like glass boards that you can see through, and you don't really pay attention to the glass board, like when you're sitting anywhere, you don't look at the beauty of the glass board, or you're seeing through the glass board. So if something beyond the glass board is nice, then you would be marveling at the beauty of the scene beyond the glass board or otherwise, but you never really pay too much attention to the glass board, or at least you shouldn't. So that's how the creation should become in your perception. You're seeing beyond them. You're seeing beyond them. This is extremely beautiful. It is as if you take like a blanket and throw it on them. You go back, keep on going back, and then you extend the blanket 100 years, millions of years. And then the blanket will cover all the creation. And then there is no one is deserving of anything except the first, because from him everything came. And so those things should not be really the focus of your attention, because they are dependent in their existence on the first. Therefore, you go back and back and back until you get to the point of the ancient eternity, the pre-eternal, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, before there was anything. And you stay there. So, in dealings with everyone around you, you will enjoy this. Because you wake up in the morning and your husband or your wife yells at you, or screams in your face. In a way that is extremely aggravating. Then you say to yourself, this is my first test of the day. Because you're seeing through them. Well, if you're seeing them, you're getting ready to bite, and then everybody will start to scream harder and louder and stuff. But once you see through them, you say to yourself, it's my first test of the day. Is this how we behave? Well, that's very hard to say yes. So this is not how we behave. So let's try to get there. It is training. It is practice. It is practice. The Prophet ﷺ said, إِنَّمَا الْعِلْمُ بِالتَّعَلُّمِ وَإِنَّمَا الْحِلْمُ بِالتَّحَلُّمِ وَمَنْ يَتَحَرَّى الْخَيْرَ يُعْطَهُ وَمَنْ يَتَّقِ الشَّرَّ يُوقَهُ. Most certainly, acquisition of knowledge is by learning. And the acquisition of forbearance, or becoming forbearing, is through practice of forbearance. الْحِلْمُ بِالتَّحَلُّمِ. It's a beautiful hadith. A beautiful hadith that's necessary for self-growth and development. And the beauty in this, keep in mind that the Prophet doesn't just put things haphazardly like this. Why is it ilm and hilm next to each other? Does anyone deny that ilm is by, that learning, that becoming knowledgeable is by learning? People don't deny that. A lot of people deny that you could become forbearing by practice. So he put the two next to each other. He's telling you as much as ilm is but by ta'allum, hilm is by tahallum, by practice of forbearance. وَمَنْ يَتَحَرَّ الْخَيْرَ يُعْطَى, whoever seeks good will be given what he sought. وَمَنْ يَتَّقِ الشَّرَّ يُوقَى, whoever avoids evil will be spared from it or protected from it. So it's such a beautiful hadith. So it just needs practice, and practice is by basically, making the intention and resolve to try to do it. First time, and if you're not married, you could find someone else who aggravates you. A lot of people would, well. And then say to yourself, next time he or she aggravates me, let me try it. And then you give the response at that time that you're beholding Allah now. And it is your first test. And you're seeing through them, respond. You'll find yourself responding differently. But just remember it at that time, which is essential. To remember it at that time. Hold yourself back. Say to yourself, well, first test of the day, see through them. Behold, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala watching you respond, and your response will come out quite different. And then see how they react to your response. And if we try to do this, we try to do some practice, things will become much different for all of us. All of us need to do this, and all of us need to practice it. And it is not like a station, the importance of this path is that it is like a consistent, continuous struggle, and it is not something that you will do once, and then you reach there, and you stay there. Any lapse of attention, you could slip off and go back to square one. Next is the belief in qadar, which requires a lot of reflection from us. See this ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in this ayah, مَا أَصَابَ مِن مُّصِيبَةٍ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَلَا فِي أَنفُسِكُمْ إِلَّا فِي كِتَابٍ مِّن قَبْلِ أَن نَّبْرَأَهَا إِنَّ ذَلِكَ عَلَى اللَّهِ يَسِيرٌ لِكَيْ لَا تَأْسَوْا عَلَى مَا فَاتَكُمْ وَلَا تَفْرَحُوا بِمَا آتَاكُمْ وَاللَّهُ لَا يُحِبُّ كُلَّ مُخْتَالٍ فَخُورٍ. No misfortune can happen on earth or in your souls, but is recorded in a decree before we bring it into existence. That is, in order that you may not despair over what you have missed, or excessively rejoice in that which you have gained. For that which Allah bestowed on you, for Allah loves not any vainglorious boaster. So that recognition, and we were talking now about the studies and that website. There's actually, there are many studies from the Mind Body Institute of Harvard University, from Mayo Clinic, the Henry Benson Institute, and many other places, that believing that all matters are in control of one, or are in one hand, or in control by one, under the control of one being, is extremely helpful for the psyche. To believe that all matters are controlled by one hand is extremely helpful for the psyche. That is the meaning of al-qadr. And that's exactly the meaning of al-qadr, particularly when the Prophet explains it further and says, خَيْرُ وَشَرُّ or خَيْرِهِ وَشَرِّهِ وَأَن تُؤْمِنَ بِالْقَدَرِ خَيْرِهِ وَشَرِّهِ, to believe in predestination, both good and bad. So everything is predestined. Everything is decreed by Allah. Whether what happens to you is a good thing or what happens to you is not a good thing. You know that all things are decreed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or all things are under the control of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah is telling us that this is good for your psyche. He says here, لكي لا تأسوا على ما فاتكم, so that you do not despair over matters that have passed you up or by, nor exult or excessively rejoice over favors bestowed upon you by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It turns out that excessive joy is actually a precursor of depression. You know, this is the bipolar thing. You know, extremes of emotions. People who can't control their emotions, they go through extremes of emotions, spikes of emotions, up and down. So be careful of excessive joy. Once it is excessive, it's unhealthy. It is unhealthy. That's why, you know, the Prophet ﷺ, when he once mentioned death, he said, no one remembers it in ساعة إلا ضيقها الله عليه. ما ذكره أحد في ساعة إلا ضيقها الله عليه ولا في ضيق إلا وسعه الله عليه. That no one remembers death while in a state of hardship, except that he will feel better. And no one will remember this while in a state of plenty and ni'mah, you know, except that it will be tightened on him, meaning he will not have that excessive joy, because he will remember that eventually I will leave this. You know, it is not here eternally, or I am not here for it eternally. So qadr is a key to your peace of mind. And your peace of mind, your contentment, your rida, is key to your to this spiritual journey. So Ibn al-Qayyim said this, and once, that is when you truly, truly believe in qadr. He said once, Ibn Taymiyyah, rahimahullah, said to me, what can my enemies do to me? I have in my breast both my heaven and my garden. If I travel, they are with me, and they never leave me. Imprisonment for me is a religious retreat, khalwa. To be slain for me is martyrdom, shahada. And to be exiled from my land is a spiritual journey, siyaha. And he said also, if they torment me, that is my jihad. So in this case, how can anyone hurt you? No one can hurt you. Because once it is an internal contentment, the exterior does not matter anymore. In fact, when the guard of the prison locked him up, you know, threw him behind the fence and locked him up, he said, وَضَرِبَ بَيْنَهُمْ بِسُورٍ لَهُ بَابٍ بَاطِنُهُ فِيهِ الرَّحْمَةُ وَظَاهِرُهُ مِنْ قِبَلِهِ الْعَذَابِ. He said that a fence has been erected between them that has a door. The interior of it is full of mercy, and the exterior is full of torment. So you are being tormented, you know, on the outside, and I am enjoying the mercy of Allah inside the prison. Because the exterior would not matter anymore, and once your Jannah is in your heart, you take it wherever you go. And anyone who oppresses you, he will be tormented in this life before the hereafter. He will be tormented in this life before the hereafter, even if he looks like he is the transgressor or the oppressor. If he looks like he's having, you know, a happy life and he's on top of all things and he has all things in control, you don't know how they're feeling inside. So the qadr miftah as-sakina. It is your key to peace of mind, to truly believe in the destinies of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Since we're talking about qadr, it is also important that you have the right belief in qadr. That you have the right belief in qadr. Qadr does not mean that you are completely powerless, because if you're completely powerless, you will not be liable. Allah had given you some power. Allah had given you some power. But this power is still under the control of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it is quite easy to, although qadr, to completely comprehend qadr, to encompass the concept of qadr with complete, you know, clarity and precision, is not possible for us. It is not possible for us. There are certain things that are not possible for us to completely comprehend. Can you completely comprehend eternity? No, because it's outside of your world. Where do you get your worldview from? Where do you get your ideas from? Where do you get your imaginations from? From this world. From this world. You know, Da Vinci, when he thought of, you know, the airplane, there were birds that were flying. You're still getting your ideas from this world. Your worldview is based on your experiences, your cumulative knowledge and experiences and so on. Is there anything in your world that is close to the concept of eternity? No. So the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you know, the qadar of Allah, the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala beyond your world. So can you encompass this? Certainly not. Beyond your world, beyond your imagination. So, do you see this? Do you see this cup here? So I will move this to the right side, inshallah. Do I have power? Can I make a choice and act upon it? Can I make a determination and execute it? Looks like it. I will bring it back to the left side, inshallah. So, a very simple test to tell the people who believe that human beings do not have any will, that you do have a will. And without having any will, you would not be liable, because Allah is most fair and just. How could He reward you and punish you when you're completely devoid of any willful action, will? So you have will. وَمَا تَشَاءُونَ إِلَّا أَن يَشَاءَ اللَّهُ. And you will not until Allah so wills. But He said تَشَاءُون. You will not. So you have will. فَمَنْ شَاءَ فَلْيُؤْمِنْ وَمَنْ شَاءَ فَلْيَكْفُرْ. Let him who pleases believe, and let him who pleases disbelieve. You have will, and you act upon this will. So when you have will and you act upon this will, then you're liable, and you should know that you're liable. You know, the person who says that, you know, I'm not liable because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who created me, created my actions. You guys say that Allah had preceding knowledge, that He wrote down all of this in the scriptures, that He willed it, that He created my actions, and certainly He created your actions. Who created matter? Allah. Who created energy? Allah. What is the action except like an interface between matter and energy? Who created both? Allah. Allah created matter and created energy and created anything that consists of matter and energy. Any interface between matter and energy is also created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is created by Allah. This movement is created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, but how do you say that I am still responsible? Some of you are parents here, right? Some of you must be. Can you ever say I'm not responsible for my kid because Allah created him? Certainly Allah created him, and certainly you didn't know anything of, oftentimes you did not know that he was around until 2 months later, 3 months later, sometimes more than that. You know. Actually, we've seen some women come after 5 or 6 months. So Allah is the one that nurtured, sustained, you know, created, formed, nurtured, sustained. Yes, He is the creator of that baby. Are you responsible for that baby? You are responsible for that baby. Likewise, you're responsible for your actions, even though they were created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because you have taken precautions, made provisions, took certain steps to having that baby. Then you're responsible for that baby. Likewise, you did that with your actions. And like I said, you know, I move it back, inshallah, to the right side. Yet, it is so easy to understand the belief of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah about Qadr. If you combine this, I'll move it back, inshallah, to the right side, with the fact that if Allah did not want this to happen, this thing could have come down. The earth could have split asunder. We could have had like an earthquake, a volcano here. I could have had like a brain hemorrhage. Much simpler than that. Something could have happened in front of me and distracted me. You know, anything could have happened, and this would have not happened if he did not mean it to happen. So we're still under his control, under his ultimate control. Yet we have enough willpower to be liable. But if all things are under his control, then your part in this, and that is what brings so much peace of mind to the person who believes in qadar, without causing them to have indifference, laxity, lethargy, because that is not the way of the Prophet and his companions. Look at them. Look at how the Prophet ﷺ planned his immigration from Mecca to Medina. Perfect planning and taking every precaution possible, and so on, and someone would come after them with their sheep to basically erase the footprints and so on. Perfect planning, and so much work and thought. So that is taking precautions. But then ultimately, when Allah's decree comes to pass, then you submit. And then when you submit, you enjoy that submission, even if the decree is painful. And that is truly when you have complete submission to the decrees of Allah. Even if the decree is painful, but you enjoy your submission. No one will tell you, enjoy your pain. You're not enjoying your pain. You can't enjoy your pain, but you're enjoying your submission. Your submission. And you're enjoying the reward that you hope for. You're enjoying the sayyat that are being erased. The fact that Allah may be erasing sayyat that you've committed in the past by this suffering. So you're enjoying this. But that's why I was reported also from Taymiyyah that he said if they knew that the favors they have done me by putting me here that I can't ever repay them for the favor, because basically you don't like to be in prison. You don't look for it. But if it is what it is, Allah's decree is happening, you submit. And once you submit, you enjoy your submission to His decrees, and you love whatever He chose for you. You love whatever He chose for you, because eventually, if you're with Him, that's all you need to do. You don't need to worry about too many things in this world. You don't need to worry about too many things. You don't need to worry about family and career and work and house and car, and you just make sure that you're with Him and you're doing your best in managing your life, and that's it. Afterwards, you're all done with that, and then you'll be happy with every decree. That's why Abdullah ibn Umar was seen laughing on the day his son died, and then he was asked, "What's that? Why are you laughing?" Because he had actually been in pain. When his son was sick, he was in pain. So, and it was obvious on him. But when his son died, he was laughing, and he said to him, "What happened? You were in pain before." He said that my pain was for his pain. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decreed a matter, so I love to love what He loved. I loved to love what He loved, or I like to like what He liked. أحببت أن أحب ما أحب. So Allah decreed the matter. Allah decreed that something would happen. So I liked to like what He liked. He liked to like what He wanted, what He decreed. And that is submission. But certainly, the maqam of the Prophet is greater than the maqam of Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhu, right? Okay. So why did the Prophet cried, and Abdullah ibn Umar left. Because Abdullah ibn Umar had two different stations here that he could not master them at the same time. He couldn't master having them at the same time. Like you juggle too many things and you can't master them, so you hold on to one. The more important one to you. The more important one to you, you hold on to it. And you just leave the others. You have to prioritize. So Abdullah ibn Umar was between two stations here, showing acceptance and pleasure with Allah's decrees and mercy that would warrant, sadness and crying for the loss of your son or the departure or separation. So he figured, I would hold on to the station of acceptance and pleasure with Allah's decrees. But for the Prophet ﷺ, he was able to perfectly master both simultaneously without compromising anyone. So he weeps and he says, إن العين لا تدمع وإن القلب لا يحزن ولا نقول إلا ما يرضى ربنا. The eyes weep and the heart is saddened, but we don't say except what Allah pleases. ولا نقول إلا ما يرضى ربنا. And then he carries on with his life. He goes to the masjid, he preaches, he does, he's not stopped by this, but he's able to show the emotion of mercy for his son who died without compromising the other stations. So he could handle them. If you can't handle more than one, then you prioritize. You look for the one that you can handle better. And you make sure that you hold on to that station if you can't handle all at once. Okay, then the station of reliance on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Prophet ﷺ in this beautiful hadith said, لَنْ يُنْجِي أَحَدًا مِنْكُمْ عَمَلُ قال الرجل ولا إياك يا رسول الله قال ولا إياي إلا أن يتغمدني الله منه برحمة ولكن سددوا. None of you shall be saved by his works. A man said, not even you, O Messenger of Allah. He said, not even me, unless Allah envelops me in mercy from him. But aim to do right. Try your best. Aim to do right, try your best. And this hadith tells you what? Tells you to not rely in this pursuit of spiritual growth, in this pursuit of nearness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Don't rely on your a'mal. Don't rely on your own deeds. Your a'mal are but means, asbab, sabab, to the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But eventually, are you relying on them? Once you rely on them, you behold them. And when you behold them, you don't behold the Creator, the one who enabled you, empowered you, and guided you to do this work. So don't rely on them. Don't look at your a'mal. Do not keep doing more for the pleasure of Allah. But don't look at your a'mal and don't think that they are going to save you. Because it is Allah who will save you. And once you think that the amal will save you, your amal will save you, then you lost focus. And you're now attributing the favor to the bestower. And once you stop attributing the favor to the bestower, you're not safe anymore. The favor may be stopped. Because Allah may leave you to, you're happy because in the last 17 years you have been fasting Monday and Thursday. Once you become a little bit too happy about it, Allah can let you handle it, go, do it. And then you can find all the difficulties in the world that will prevent you from fasting Monday and Thursday. So, but you continue to show the gratitude and to rely on Him for your survival, not on your a'mal. Basically, you throw your net and ask Him for the catch. Because all you can do is throw your net. But will you throw your net? Yes, you throw your net. Can you catch fish without throwing your net? No. Can you eat? Can you get full without reaching for food? No. But then you have no guarantees. If when you throw your net, you have no guarantees. So you throw your net and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the fish. So Ibn Ata rahimahullah said the mark of relying on Allah is that your raja will not waver, and when you fall, you trust that He can help you rise if you seek Him. Abu Madian said, rahimahullah, the heartbrokenness of the sinner is better than the forcefulness of the obedient. The heart, this is sometimes the sayyah could lead you to a better place than the hasana. The hasana that will give you arrogance could push you back, miles away, in this journey to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the sayyah that will break you, that will make you humble, that will make you, show humility to Allah. The repentance. Isn't this what Allah said? Allah فرح بتوبة عبدي من أحدكم سقط على بعيره وقد أضله في أرض الفلاح. Allah is more happy with this repentance of one of you than with your repentance than one of you who found his camel after he lost it in the middle of the desert. When you lose your camel in the middle of the desert, you're done, right? So if you just in some of the hadith, it said that he went to the shade of a tree and he laid in the shade of the tree. That's it. You're waiting for your end. And all of a sudden he wakes up and he finds his camel. So out of joy he says, "Oh Allah, you are my servant and I'm your Lord." Making a mistake out of the joy, the excessive joy. So Allah says that Allah, is happier with your repentance than this person finding his camel. That repentance includes regret. This heartbrokenness before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is what He wants of you. Just to recognize, acknowledge who you are. You are the servant, the weak, the feeble servant that is dependent on Him, reliant on Him, that can't do anything without Him, can't be guided without Him, and you're dependent on Him in all of your affairs. That's why He says, كلكم جائع إلا من أطعمته فاستطعموني وأطعمكم كلكم عار إلا من كسوته فاستكسوني يكسكم كلكم ضال إلا من هديته فاستهدوني أهدكم وإن يا عبادي إنكم تخطئون بالليل والنهار وأنا أغفر الذنوب جميعا فاستغفروني أغفر لكم. This is the hadith of Abi Dharr, hadith Qudsi, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala begins the hadith by forbidding injustice upon Himself and making it forbidden amongst us. And then He says, Ya ibadi kullukum ja'a illa man at'amtum fastat'imuni at'amtum. All of you are hungry except for those whom I feed, so ask me for food and I'll feed you. All of you are naked except for those whom I clothe, so ask me for clothes and I will clothe you. All of you are misguided except for those whom I guide, so ask me for guidance and I will guide you. All of you commit sins day and night, and I forgive all sins, so ask me for forgiveness and I'll forgive you. So Allah, like we said in the other hadith, this one is hadith Qudsi from Allah. Food and drink, you want that. You need Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to provide that for you. But many people don't pay attention to the fact that guidance also, you need that more than food and drink. And you're just as, in need for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to provide guidance for you. Because you think, like many times we think we could do it on our own. I'm smart, I can read the book and I can figure it out. So, but it's not true. Because guidance eventually is not guidance to the right information. It is guidance of the heart to the right conduct after you collect the information. You do need guidance to the right information, because there are a lot of books and and a lot of information out there, and a lot of falsehood. So you do need guidance there. But what matters the most, the stage of guidance that is most important, that belongs to Allah alone and not to anyone else, because people could lead you to information. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said to the Prophet, وَإِنَّكَ لَتَهْدِي إِلَى صِرَاطٍ مُسْتَقِيمٍ. You guide people to a straight path. But then he said to the Prophet, إِنَّكَ لَتَهْدِي مَنْ أَحْبَبْتَ وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ يَهْدِي مَنْ يَشَاءُ. You don't guide whomever you please. But he said to him, you guide. And here he said, you don't guide. So there are two different steps, two different stages of guidance. Hidayat al-dalala, which is to guide them by pointing out to them the path. And hidayat al-tawfiq is to guide them by helping them out, take the right path. Hidayat al-dalala, which is to point out the path to them, people could guide in that sense, point out the right path. But then after they point out the right path, will you necessarily take the right path? After it has been pointed out to you, then you need Allah to help you take the right path, to guide you, hidayat al-tawfiq, give you tawfiq to take the right path, and no one else but Allah can do this for you. And that is where Allah said to the Messenger, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, if anyone could do it, it would have been the Messenger. But this step is reserved for Allah, hidayat al-tawfiq. So no one could do it but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So know that you need His help for your own guidance. And in this case, show much humility and humbleness. Humility and humbleness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reflect on you. Like, don't think that you could act haughty in front of people and just so, proud and say to yourself that, as far as God is concerned, I'm humble. No, but God wants you to show that humbleness. Allah wants you to be humble with His creation. That is how you show humbleness with Allah's creation. So remember this: the heartbrokenness of the sinner is better than the forcefulness of the obedient. But when you know this, the mark of relying on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is that your raja will never waver. Well, that's the beauty of that concept. Raja, which is hope. Your hope will never waver. Because if you rely on yourself, and you do well for a day or two, or a week or two, or a month or two, or a year or two, but you fall, then you could be desperate of survival, rising one more time. But if you know that you're relying on Him, then no obstacle, there is no obstacle that you cannot overcome. Because you say to yourself, He can pick you up and get you across. But if you think that you would have to do it yourself and the obstacle is high or the challenge is great, you feel so much despair because the challenge is great. But if you're relying on Him, He can pick you up and get you across very easily. So you don't lose hope and you continue to work on yourself. How long do we? No. When should we take a break?
I have it here at 4.
You have it here at 4? Okay. So we're carrying on and take it. Okay, so now we're done with why is it important to purify our hearts, how to reach excellence in ibadah, types of hearts, purification, stations, and then begin the walk. The first thing, in order for you to begin the walk, I mentioned friends, and I meant by it a lot more than just friends. I meant by it environment. if you're not in the right environment, do you know the hadith Abu Sa'id al-Khudri about the man who killed 99? Okay. So the advice for him was what? To leave the village in which he was and to move to another village in which there are pious people to worship Allah with them. So basically, remove yourself from the environment that is not helpful to an environment which will help you out on this path that you have taken. That does not necessarily mean moving from one country to the other. It could mean sometimes moving from one city to the other. It could sometimes mean moving from one community to the other, from one masjid to the other. But really the masajid are extremely important. And it is our responsibility that we work together to provide the right environment for each other, because like each one of us cannot make an environment. And that's the importance of jama'ah in Islam. That is, there are so many hadith where the Prophet ﷺ talked about jama'ah. So many hadith. They talk about the importance of adhering to the jama'ah and staying with the jama'ah and so on. Because there are certain things, although this is a very individual pursuit, but they can text the environment, outside of your own borders. You do need an environment that is fostering, that is conducive to purification. And how do we do this if we don't come together and help one another to make that environment where we can spiritually grow and where our children can be, to some extent, protected, from all the poisons? Are you happy with the state of affairs that we're in now? Like in any community, or do you really feel good, safe? Do you feel that your children are, in safe environment? No, really not. So that is the importance of working together towards creating that environment that will be safe for our spirituality, safe for our religious commitment, for our deen, and for our children's deen, and families, and for the rest of the Muslims. Because really, it is extremely important for each one of us that we're all doing better. Because we pull each other down when we're down. And when someone rises, he can help someone else to rise, and a third one, and so on, so we can pull each other up. So this is an individual pursuit, I repeat, but there are those connections, networks, it's like a web, and we really need to elevate all of us so that we can find the right environment for us to continue our individual journey. Along with this, the issue of friendship, and that issue is extremely important. And friendship, even if you have one single friend that will remind you of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you want to hold on to that friend. Because most friends nowadays will remind you of everything else except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You just talk about, you walk into the masjid that you find people, reading the paper, and they're talking about lots of issues, and sisters also, a lot of times it's about the sales that are going on and stuff. But you'll find very few people that will remind you of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if you can find someone, you hold on to them by your teeth. And if you can't find someone, then you look for someone. Then you want to look for someone. But it goes back to the masjid and to creating that environment conducive to all of this in our masajid. The arcs of Noah for us are the masajid. الرجل على دين خليله فلينظر أحدكم من يخالف. Prophet ﷺ said, each man follows his friend's way, so choose carefully those you befriend. Still here on this issue of friends and environment, when is it better for you to just pull out and have some solitude, some seclusion, some solitude?
The last third of the night. The last third of the night.
Last third of the night. Okay. Solitude is not, khalwa, billah azza wa jal. It is uzla from the people. It is seclusion, meaning ta'tazir al-nas. Khulta means mingling with people. Uzla means seclusion from people, separation from people, detachment from people. The khalwa or uzla is not one thing, because you could do this for an hour, you could do this for 2 hours, you could do this for a day, you could do this for a month. It varies. Certainly, you need to go to the masajid if you're a man, and you need to go to your congregational prayers. But again, at the same time, whether you mingle or not, run away home for your own khalwa, your own retreat with Allah, your own solitude with Allah. Sometimes you do need some khalwa, some retreat. Otherwise, you will always be in this busy environment, and that is distracting. Busy, 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 busy. It can even affect your psyche, affect your mentation, your ability to think, and your ability to contemplate by being busy with people all the time. There is need for some time alone, and that's awqat al-sahar, the last 1/3 of the night and so on. But there are other awqat also where you do need this, and you do need to contemplate and ponder over the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and so on and so forth, and be introspective. Think about your own conditions. Because most of the time we're thinking about everybody's condition except us. So you think about, he's doing this, she's doing that, and so on. But you're not paying attention to your own condition and to your own turmoils and troubles. So we do need this. But when do we need this for more extended periods of time? We all need it for some periods of time to be introspective and think about our conditions and have the solitude with Allah and to remove the distractions. When do we need it for more prolonged times? If the distraction is too much, and if you're unable to build up mental walls, then you need to have a little bit more solitude. If you're the kind of person who gets so much affected by people and people's perception and watches people and these are tests. The fact that everybody is tested by a different trial. And this could be your test. Someone else is being tested by something else. And a third thing, lots of things we could be tested by. But for those people who are so focused on what people think of them and so on, they need longer periods of solitude. Because otherwise they will always be busy looking at people and thinking of what they're thinking of them, or showing off or this or that. So those people need a little bit more time alone. So they can come to the masjid but run away to figure out your problem, because you have a big problem. And your problem is with the people, is because of mingling. So you need to really take care of that problem by doing the counter of that, which is to deprive yourself from presence in the midst of people. But you come to the masjid and you pray, and then you go home quickly. You don't hang out too much, and you don't speak about your achievements and accomplishments and your business and your kids and who went to Harvard and who went to whatever. Just forget about all of this and run home. and have some more time for yourself. Also, you would need a little bit more time alone if all the people around you are so far beneath you that you feel that they're pulling you down, and they're so resistant to change that you don't feel that you're pulling them up. So in this case, you do need solitude because the distance is far, and you're finding so much resistance, you don't feel that you can pull them up. At the same time, they are pulling you down. And in this case, you'll need more solitude. But never abandon the masajid. Biyutullah. Never abandon the masajid. Never abandon the congregation of the Muslimin. And if someone invited you to something that's purely good, that's really good, do it. Do it.
Is there ever a point that you detach yourself from, maybe based on this hadith, from those people who may have extreme offensive characteristics or may continue to pull you down, especially based on the hadith that less Muslim and more mixes with the people, even though he's harmed by them, and he's patient with that harm that he receives from the harm.
The Muslim that mixes with the people and tolerates their harm is better than the Muslim that does not mix with the people and tolerate their harm.
How do you balance that?
How do you balance this with solitude?
How do you balance that from detaching from people who may be negatively pulling you down?
The ultimate result, you're seeing it, that the sun at the end of the line, or the ultimate result, you're seeing it. You're trying to help them, they're pulling you down, so you watch and you find yourself being pulled down, or you find yourself pulling them up. You're being pulled down, you detach. You can work, keep the hadith certainly front and center. If you can do any help, and you think that they pull you down a little bit, but you're helping them, and over time you can overcome that hump and start to work on yourself and bring yourself up again, but you would have brought many of them up, and then they help you afterwards, on this path. Then carry on, even if you come down a little bit, carry on and mix with them and do that. But if you find that you're persistently being pulled down, and you can't really, sometimes there are people like this, sometimes there will be communities like this, where you're always being pulled down, you just can't do it. And you find yourself like too weak to pull them up. So in this case, you prefer more isolation, more solitude. And I am not saying that it is complete solitude. And khalwa, or seclusion, or retreat, or uzla, detachment, is like a horse. All of these things are vehicles. The ultimate goal, you want to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you ride this horse and you try it, and it gets you to a certain station, and then you come off of it and you ride another horse that gets you to another station. So al-khalwa is like a horse, your mount. Use it and see how it goes. Use it. But know that sometimes the horse can be rebellious. And there should be some, the strength of the horse and the rider should be proportionate. So sometimes you find a very good horse, but a weak rider. And that rider will certainly fall off the horse. So although the horse itself is an excellent horse, but the rider is not at the point to ride that horse. So solitude and times of contemplation and solitude, for certain persons that are very weak, will be very detrimental, because they fall off that horse. The horse is too strong for them, at this point of the journey. This horse is not good for them at this point of the journey. because they are not strong enough to ride that horse. And the horse of Uzla and Khalwa is rather a stronger horse. You keep this in mind. That's why the Prophet ﷺ talked about the Jama'ah and so on, because you do need the Jama'ah. And we're not saying that the Khalwa will always be, will ever be that complete one, complete isolation, because you will need to come to the masajid, you will need to pray, and you will need to do what is obligatory. So that you're still with the Jama'ah, but the balance, where you draw the line between the time that you will spend with people and the time where you will spend alone. Should you spend more time with the people or more time alone? And I said that there are certain cases where you need to spend more time alone. However, if you find that solitude or that time that you're spending alone to be drifting you away, to be causing you harm, to be taking you far, then you realize, because all of what you're doing here is, how do I get to my destination? And it is not about one particular horse. It's not about one particular horse. It's about how much am I covering, and how focused I am. So if you find that horse to be too strong for you, you get off of it, and you start mixing in with the people, and to try as much as you can to do the things, the good things with the people that will revive your spirituality. Now, we said that the mentors, the people, the environment is not always there. So will we ever depend on contemporary mentors alone? Current mentors, alive, No, we should never do that. We should never do that. Therefore, you want to really learn about those who attain the highest stations and the reward. So the Mir said here, truly there is a heaven in this world, and whoever does not enter it will not enter the heaven of the hereafter. And I said the other one before. So Ibn Qayyim said, an ascetic, Wahid al-Zuhad, once said, if kings and the sons of kings knew what we had, they would try to take it from us by the sword. Another one said, how pitiful the worldly people. They leave this life without having tasted the sweetest thing. That is Abdullah ibn Mubarak, by the way. And we did mention it before. Another said, there are times when the heart dances in joy. And another said, there are times when I say, if the people of the heaven have anything like this, how truly sweet their lives. All of those, are examples of our righteous predecessors that attained those higher stations. Yet, who attained the highest of stations? The Prophet ﷺ. So to learn about the life of the Prophet ﷺ and to live with the Prophet ﷺ, meaning that the seerah should not be a book that you read one time, did you read seerah? Yes, I did. I finished the whole book with my sheikh, 1998. We did this. So whom are you living with? Like, whom are you learning from if you just did this 1998? Yeah, I know. I did it. We did spend a lot of time. And, it's not about spending a lot of time. It's not about information. It's about living with, the companionship of the Prophet ﷺ. The more you read, like you feel the companionship of the Prophet ﷺ, the more you read and the more you learn lessons of the seerah and so on. And there are multitudes of lessons, and there are multitudes of ways the seerah was written. There is the chronological approach to the seerah, there is the topical approach to the seerah, there is the fiqh seerah, which is the lessons learned from the seerah. Multitudes of ways. So you read the book that follows this way, and another book that follows that way, and so on, and you keep on looking for the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ so that you enjoy that companionship, his companionship. And then the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, because they will have more, characteristics like you, like we said yesterday. And the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, this was actually one of the things that worked for me the most, the seerah of the companions. It works very, very well, particularly if it is a well-written book. And I would really recommend for you, despite the fact that the book is not necessarily written in the traditional way, and the book does have some mistakes. We cannot, do away with books that have mistakes, because in this way, what are we going to keep? If we do away with books that have mistakes. We'll keep the Quran. Even al-Bukhari did not say that his book does not have mistakes. The Prophet does not make mistakes, but al-Bukhari, did not claim that his book is like the Quran. If it was from other than Allah, they would have found discrepancy in it. But Rijal Hawla Rasul, men around the Prophet. This was written by an Egyptian author by the name of Muhammad Khalid, and it has been translated, but look for a good translation. There are two different translations, one of them is better than the other.
Can you repeat it?
It is men around the messenger. Men around the messenger.
Do you know which translation?
You will know from the publisher which translation is better. Yeah. Someone was asking a question?
No, I was just wondering how accurate is that statement of Isaiah that no one enters the paradise, or he will never enter the paradise?
He will have to have like we said, there is a baseline of each act of ibadah that you have to have for you to be a believer. And then there is a baseline of this also. So if you never tasted any sweetness of Iman in your heart, then you're not a mu'min. Because Iman is sweet. So if you have the least of it, you will have that little taste that you will be able to taste. So there will be some little garden here that you will enter. There is a threshold of certainty that you have to cross to be a believer. Once you have crossed the threshold of certainty, that very certainty itself is a paradise, is a Jannah in the heart. To know who created you. Don't you wonder about how people, like how sad people are when they don't know their fathers? If they're not quite sure about who their father is, they are in distress. It should be much more if you don't know who your Lord is. Because your father was just but means by which you were created. But if you don't know who your Lord is, if you were brought here and no one brought you, and you don't know why you were brought here and for what and where you're going, and what, that's very distressful. That is truly very distressful. That is much more than not knowing who your father is. If you don't know who your Lord is. So to get to know who your Lord is, and to get those answers, those most existential answers, or most existential matters that you should find answers for. Where did we come from? What are we here for? And where are we going? Given to you in detail by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the creator of the universe and the earth. And He established signs on the truthfulness of those answers. And you received them. You should rejoice in this. You should be happy. That is the garden in your. If that's it, that is enough to have this paradise in your heart. Graduation is important. This is a hadith from the Prophet ﷺ. Tirmidhi reported this from Abi Hurairah radiallahu anhu, in which the Prophet ﷺ said, إن لكل شيء شر ولكل شرة فترة فإن كان صاحبها سدد وقارب فأرجوه أن أشير إليه بالأصابع فلا تعدوا. Everybody has his time of energy, and every time of energy is followed by a time of lethargy. But if a person tries to follow a moderate path, then have hope for him. And if he becomes one who is pointed out, then do not think anything good of him. Pointed out like what? Every time, there is energy and lethargy. So you go through cycles. You are a human being. You're not immune to the cycles. So you go through cycles of energy and lethargy, more iman and less iman. So during your time of energy, if you seek the path of moderation, then what is the path of moderation? There is another hadith from Ibn Hibban, reported by Ibn Hibban from Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As, in which the Prophet ﷺ said, إِنَّ لِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ شَرَّةٍ وَلِكُلِّ شَرَّةٍ فَتْرَةٍ فمن كانت شرته إلى سنتي فقد نجا ومن كانت فترته إلى غير ذلك فقد هلك. Everything has, there is energy, or every action has like times of energy and times of lethargy or lassitude. And so whoever turns to my sunnah in his time of energy, he survived. And whoever turns away from my sunnah in the time of lethargy, he is destroyed. Meaning that you will need to hold on to the sunnah in both times of energy and lethargy. The sunnah is very wide scope, but hold on to the sunnah, even in your time of lethargy. That is not active, that is not doing everything the Prophet ﷺ did, because you need to be at your best time of energy to do 1/4 of what he did. But that is basically following his sunnah, abiding by the obligations of fara'id, staying away from muharramat, and trying to do of, the nawafil as much as you can to get through this time of lethargy, laziness, lassitude, until you get to the time of energy. But when you get to the time of energy, observe the sunnah as well. Don't be excessive. Don't be excessive. That is what he's saying here. Because if you exceed the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, if you try to say, well, I'll fast every day. The Prophet said, no, I fast one, and break my fast. Fast sometimes and break my fast, and so on. So when he's pointed out, meaning that he is going too fast. And if you go too fast, what do you do to your horse? Your nafs? You kill it. You kill your horse if you go too fast. And then you will not have a mouth to complete the journey. So it is important that even in the time of energy, you hold on to the sunnah and you do not be excessive. So graduation is important. Graduation is important. And moderation is important. Yeah.
What does it mean to be pointed out?
Pointed out is when people point him out and say, look at this guy, look at how pious he is, and look at, he's here at the masjid all the time, he's this, he's that, he's all over the place, he's doing everything, with everybody all over the place. Like basically exceeding his limitations. And this cannot be maintained, until you can maintain it through graduation, where it becomes second nature for you. So Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, the Prophet ﷺ says, "Man asbaha minkum al-yawma sa'iman," who woke up fasting today? Abu Bakr said, "I, O Messenger of Allah." "Man aada minkum al-yawma maridan," who visited the sick person today? "I, O Messenger of Allah." "Who followed the funeral today? Who attended the funeral today? I, O Messenger of Allah." "Who fed someone poor today? I, O Messenger of Allah." So the Prophet ﷺ said they were never done by one person in one day, except that he would enter paradise. Like no one can handle this. No one can master all of this together in one day, except that he will be one of the people of paradise. So that is, when you reach that station, these things will become second nature for you, will become easy for you. But Abu Bakr reached this over time. Over time. So, reciting the Book of Allah with contemplation. If we want strength, we want stability, we want spiritual growth, it is in the Book of Allah. It is in the Quran. And that, again, is one thing that we do little. So, وقال الذين كفروا لولا نزل عليه القرآن جملة واحدة كذلك لنثبت به فؤادك. And those who disbelieve said, why isn't the Quran revealed to him all at once? Thus, it is sent to you in parts that we may strengthen your heart thereby. And we have revealed it to you gradually, in stages. What does it mean to strengthen your heart? Well, the Prophet ﷺ used to, be challenged by the disbelievers so much. He used to encounter so much difficulties, so much hardships. You can't imagine when the Quran comes fresh from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through Jibreel. Can anything be more, stabilizing, strengthening, empowering, reviving, rejuvenating than this? You're in the middle of the hardships and the disbelievers, mock you and hurt you and kill your uncle and your companions and do this and that and so much. And then Jibreel comes down to you with a message. With a message from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But guess what? This message is here. The part of it is Jibreel coming with the message fresh from Allah, but part of it is the message itself. And the message itself is still here. But we're not reaching out enough for it, to give us more strength and more iman. And reflect on the address of the Quran. So Ibn al-Qayyim said this in his book Al-Fawaid, and this was translated by Abu Abbad. He's not here today. You will find the king for which is all ownership. So Ibn al-Qayyim is telling you about the speech of the Quran, the address of the Quran. Who's addressing you? It is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that is addressing you in this book. And I will read this verbatim because it's so beautiful. You will find the king for which is all ownership and all praise. The reins of all matters are in his hands, and their source is from him, and the return is to him, established upon the bit of his dominion. Not a single hidden thing can hide from him in the corners of his kingdom, singled out in planning for his kingdom, hears and sees, gives and deprives, rewards and punishes, honors and humiliates, creates and provides, takes life and gives it, portions and plans. So reflect on how you find him directing his slaves to what contains their happiness and success. He who is in control, who does not need you, does not benefit from your guidance, is reaching out to you to tell you of what will be in your best interest in this life and the one to come. And he acquaints them with himself. He reaches out to you to tell you about himself, to acquaint you with himself. By his names and his attributes, he seeks their love for him. By his blessings and favors, he informs them of what he does with his cherished slaves as well as his enemies, and what were their outcomes. Isn't that what the Quran is about? All of this, that is what the Quran is about. And he strikes parables and alternates in the variety of his evidences and proofs, and refutes the misconceptions of his enemies with the most perfect of responses. He invites to the lands of safety, and reminds about its descriptions and its beauties and bliss, and warns of the lands of doom, and reminds about its punishments and its ugliness and pains. And he reminds his slaves of the severity of their need for him in every way, that they can't suffice without him for the blink of an eye. And it is witnessed from his exhortation to those he loves the gentleness of exhortations, and that he, alongside that, is the fixer of their wrongs and forgiver of their slip-ups and granter of their pardon and their rectifier of their corruption and their defender and their protector and their victor and their disposer of their affairs and their savior from every misery. So when the heart witnesses from the Quran, this great, merciful, beautiful King, how can it not love him and compete in achieving closeness to him and spend its breath in earning his love, and for that to be more beloved to it than anything else, and his pleasure to be more preferred with it than the pleasure of everything else. And how does it not live attached to his remembrance until his love and being pleased with his company become its nutrition, strength, and medicine? So inshallah, I'll stop here for a break.